C'è una sigla, non c'è una sigla?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to you all, also those listening to us online. We are at the Rimini meeting. I would like to thank the International Cooperation Area hosting us today. We are going to talk about three good news. I'm Elisabetta Soglio. I'm head of the insert Buone Notizie, good news in the Corriere della Sera newspaper. So where there's good news, I try to be there. Today we have three good news that are represented here by our guests that I'm going to introduce to you in a moment. But the background good news today is that we would like to do, well, you haven't applauded yet. Come on, give them a round of applause. Come on. I come from Concorrezzo, which is not far from here, but they come from very far from here. And background good news is that today we would like to try to tell you about not good practices, nice projects. There are so many in Italy. The ones we are going to talk about today are the results of AVSI that started so many good projects in poor countries and difficult countries for many years. But the good news is that in addition to good practices, through their stories, we are going to tell you how a good practice, a good project that is achieved thanks to our donation and the commitment of many people and the world of NGOs and cooperation in Italy can change, and I mean radically change, the life of so many people, of so many young people. These young people were likely to have poverty and difficulties in their life and without having the possibility to discover their talents, but instead, thanks to these projects and these initiatives, they had the opportunity to discover themselves as people capable of doing very important things. Terry is the only young lady in this group, but we will keep her presentation for later, as I would like to start with our friends from Brazil. We have our protagonists here. We have Julivam. I have tried to pronounce correctly the name for hours today, and also Nelson. They have a particular story to tell us that started in Salvador de Bahia, in the periphery, an area that was not an urban area. The government didn't plan anything for that part of the city, but very poor people, little by little, started to settle there, and they created houses there. And you can imagine what kind of life they had in an unplanned urban area. And in 2000, AVSI started a project concerning a lot of interventions. And one of them is an educational center that is then dedicated to John Paul II. In this educational center, a few miracles take place. I'm going to briefly mention things now, but they will go deeper later. In this center, there's classes in the morning and then in the afternoon, and on Saturdays, there's sports activities, for example, football, because football is a kind of disease for every single kid of the world. When they are born, they immediately look for their coach, probably. And this initiative gives the opportunity to many children to get an education, to have a future, and to have greater culture. We have said in the meetings, and not just here, that culture is the most important vehicle for empowering people. And a number of things happened that happened to them. So, Julivan, tell us about your story. How did your life change?
Que eu finalizei meu ensino.
Scusa un attimo perché guardo la regia, cioè non penserete che io poi vi faccio la traduzione escluso. Doveva partire la traduzione in simultanea, guardo la regia, riproviamo? Perché tra l'altro ringraziamo anche le 3 interpreti, il meeting è una macchina.
We would like to thank the interpreters that are helping us. The meeting is aided by a team of interpreters, and we should be able to listen to their voice. There are some technical problems with the Brazilian Portuguese booth. Unfortunately, one of the microphones is not working.
Riproviamo, vai.
Tudo bem. Sou Julivam Estevam, tenho 29 anos.
My name is Julivam Estevam. I'm 29 years old. I was born in Salvador, and I grew up there. And I was basically born with that educational center. I started working there when I was very young. I was 19 years old. I also started attending the university. I started as an intern. I was working with the professors there. I was working with them. I was also taking care of the meals, and I was helping all the teaching staff. And after a year and a half, I was asked to give maths lessons. I studied physics, so I could also teach math. So I started working with math. However, I was not really happy about that. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt that there was something missing. So after that, I had another opportunity. I could work with information technology. So when I started working with IT, I understood that I didn't just want to teach basic things and basic programs. I thought that I had to move forward. So how could I help concretely those young people? So in addition to my standard lessons, I also started to talk about life. So you have tried to give back of some of the things that you had received. So what was that enriched your personal and professional life the most? It was the site. The site was essential. I was seen in that space as something that was potentially useful. And from then on, I started looking at those young people with different eyes. And so I gave that site back to them, and that was a threshold to me. And then you also felt in love, so you found everything in this educational center, basically. Oh, yes, indeed. I felt in love with this profession, teaching, but I also got to know my future wife there, and I have become a father now. My little daughter his name is Cecilia, And this experience I had there really helped me to be a great father. Well, talking about becoming a father and passing on something to your kids and educating, what do you try and teach to your students? And is there any particular case you would like to tell us about your students? Well, over the years, we have had many training hours with other colleagues, and there was a common topic that was avoiding risks. And when I started studying, I didn't understand what was the real essence of educating about risk. And it was the students that really made me understand what that kind of risk they were talking about was. We had to consider everything from a 360-degree perspective. We had to had deep knowledge. Well, I could mention many emotional and also many sad examples because in this community there is a lot of violence, and unfortunately some students are not with us anymore. So I prefer not to mention these sad cases, although it is important to talk about them. But I also have good examples, good news. There was a student who had many challenges in learning and also in interpersonal relations with the family. And she started to inflict harm to herself, to cutting her arms. And I could also see that she was getting close to me, and I acted as a teacher. I didn't really know what was going on about, so I was trying to listen to everything that she was telling to me. It was really an incredible situation. One day she came to me and she said, thanks. She stopped cutting herself. She stopped inflicting harm to herself, and I didn't understand the reason behind this fact that she said thank you to me. And she said to me that I had worried about her as a real father. In no other place, people really were interested in myself, whether I had a good sleep or if I was feeling good. Instead, you always ask me about me, if I am well, if I had a coffee. I was really interested in her. I was worried about her. And after this case, I started taking this perspective with every single student. Well, that's the sight, the way of looking at people that you mentioned before that can change the life of many people. And this is also applicable to Nelson's story, who also attended this educational center. So how was it for you to live as a kid in this place of big poverty? You used to live on the pile dwelling. And how was your childhood there? How was your way of being a child there? Thank you. Thank you very much. I could say 3 words in Italian and that's it. So good evening, good afternoon, everybody. I am one of the many young people from that community. And I was common. Why am I saying this word, common? Because by living in that place, nobody feels special. especially in my country, where there are so many social issues. There's racial issues, and there's always a paradigm whereby it is not possible to go beyond what we see. When I knew Paola Segarini, she always used to tell me that the center had to be beautiful, that we had to take care of it, that the physical environment had to be beautiful and pleasant, and that the lessons had to be high-quality lessons with good teachers. And this also is mirrored on how one sees himself or herself. And this is the way of seeing of an Italian person, as all the persons that are around me today. I grew up in an area where there were pile dwelling. I saw that kind of housing. My house was not on poles, but it was a wooden house, and that kind of timber has nothing to do with Italian timber. There was a lot of violence at that time, and I attribute all this to the big social inequalities. It is a complex issue, really, because for some time everything could be nice and calm. We were just chasing each other and playing around. But 1 second after that, you have to run because you have to hide yourself from bullets. Today, the situation has improved, and there has been great progress from a social point of view. However, there is still a lot of violence, especially right now. We are facing lots of problems. I grew up in Mando, the neighborhood where I used to live, and what I'm gonna tell you is a little bit strange, because I like that place. How can you love that place? Because we all love our own house. I used to live loving everything, even if it may sound weird. We played next to the river, even if it was not that clean. We used to play soccer in the streets. And everything was nice to us. We were loving our neighborhood. And there was a kind of patriotism in the different neighborhoods. When I played football with the kids from other neighborhoods, you had kind of fights with them. Well, we were trying to defend our position just like in the World Cup. Tell us about the educational center. When you got there, it was a turning point for you. It changed your life perspectives, because as a kid, as you were saying, one kid loves his own, her own house. They may not even realize the situation where they live, and they don't think about what they do when they grow up. So the educational center has helped you grow up in some way? Well, I'm going to give you an example, as this will be clearer in what I would like to say. When we arrived to Italy, we prepared with Paola, and she showed us some of the places that we would have visited. I had already seen Michelangelo's David, and I had already seen some pictures of the Pietà in St. Peter's, in the Vatican, in the books, of course. And Paula showed me the Dome of Florence. And when I saw the dome in a computer, I said, fair enough. And when I saw it for real, wow, I thought, wow, it is beautiful. The city center was beautiful, and it gave us a different perspective, really. And why am I talking about this? Because if you have nothing to compare with something beautiful, with something important, you will always think that your reality is the best that you have. And the educational center gave me this opportunity to realize this through education, and today it's much better than it used to be years ago. That's really nice today. Just to clarify, Paula is one of the operators of the association working in the educational center of Bahia. And given their presence at the meeting, they also had the opportunity to have a short tour of Italy. You visited Rome, Florence. Did you go to Venice? Maybe not. No, Pisa, Prato. So they had the chance to visit some parts of our country. Just one last question, and then we move to Harry. So first of all, could you please tell us what you do? And I found a personal trainer when we were having lunch together, and so I skipped a dessert, so just to show him that I've already started to commit, and he didn't have the dessert either. So I wanted to ask you, what do you teach your kids? My professional story in the educational center started with an internship. I worked in all sports sectors, basketball, jiu-jitsu. But what we wanted was to be soccer players, just like any other poor kid in Brazil. So today I'm a personal trainer, a PT, and I work at the center together with futsal. I work with young children from 6 to 18 years of age, and I give training sessions of futsal, and I organize competitions, tournaments, but the most important thing is not to compete. And I'm going to give you an example. There was this kid called Miguel Grimaldi. He was so unruly. He was always nervous, even violent at times. But he used to play football so well. And during a game, all the players were really motivated for that particular match. We were losing, and there was little time, and he scored a goal. And after scoring this goal that got us the victory, a common reaction would be running, jumping, taking off one's shirt, or saying swear words, but doing something. Instead, he came to me and started to cry. I hugged him and I told him, "Good job, Miguel. Keep going like this." But the match wasn't over. So I told him, "Come on, Miguel, get back to the pitch and play and have fun." Why am I telling you this? Just to let you understand the emotional fragility of these kids. They're very fragile. When one is vulnerable, he or she will always be vulnerable. Some things may be obvious to some people, but in this case, they are necessary. One has to express explicitly, and self-esteem is important, the importance of studying, being educated, the importance of parents, the importance of keeping away from violence and risks, because it is very difficult to go through this path. Things that may be considered obvious here must be expressed instead. So the center has had an extremely positive influence on my life. And with my job as a PT, I try to be a positive influence for these young people. Thank you. Thank you very much. You see, this is the kind of objective of what we wanted to do today. We wanted to give an idea with concrete things, the faces and the words and the flesh of these people, of the many actions that from here we bring to places that are far away from our cities, but that can really change the life of a person. And then, as a domino effect, there is a change in other people's life. Then now we move from Brazil to Africa. The story of Terry Muchiri is an incredible story. If we had to give a newspaper headline, we could say, from the slum to enterprise success, to business success. She's a businesswoman and she manages more than a company in more than a country in Africa. This is a summary, but this summary contains a story made of a lot of effort, a lot of pain, but a story of a lot of success and social gain. And now I would like to ask Terry to tell us about to tell us something about her and the fact that her age, we couldn't tell her age at all. And she has both business and family responsibilities that are so great. Terry, the floor to you.
I don't understand what you asked me, but I'm assuming you told me
Non
to
ti hanno
introduce myself.
non c'era la traduzione?
No
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Lei non ha sentito la traduzione?
Can you hear me? Terry? Terry, can you hear me?
Thank you. My name is Teresia Muchiri, but people call me Terry. I am a child of the global village in Kenya. We have a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. In my case,
Nel mio caso
it took a collective effort
c'è stato bisogno di uno sforzo collettivo
by all of you
da
unknowingly
parte di tutti voi,
to raise me.
persone che io non conoscevo e non mi conoscevano, che mi avete cresciuto.
I come from a slum in Nairobi.
Io vengo da una baraccopoli di Nairobi
It's called Kawangware.
che si chiama Cavanguare.
My parents were quite poor and we lived in
I miei
informal
genitori
setups.
erano davvero molto poveri e avevamo un alloggio precario.
We later moved to another informal setup,
Poi ci siamo spostati in un altro alloggio, anch'esso abbastanza precario.
probably to look for a better life,
Probabilmente l'intento era quello di
But it
migliorare
was
la
more-
nostra vita,
but it was more or less the
ma
same
in
setting.
realtà più o meno la situazione era rimasta la stessa.
And when we moved to that side of
Quando
town,
poi appunto ci siamo spostati in questo secondo alloggio in quella parte della città,
I was about 16, 17 years old.
avevo 16-17 anni
And I was just about to finish my high school.
e stavo per terminare la scuola superiore.
When I finished high school,
Quando poi ho finito la scuola superiore
I noticed there was a school near our house.
e mi resi conto che vicino alla nostra casa c'era un'altra scuola
It was called San Kzito Vocational Training Institute.
che si chiamava Istituto di Formazione Professionale San Kzito.
But I did not pay a lot of attention to it at first.
Inizialmente non prestai molta attenzione a questa scuola.
But when I finished school, the high school,
Quando finii i miei studi di scuola superiore, mi diplomai,
I was supposed to join college.
ebbene a quel punto sarei
Ba-
potuta andare all'università.
But my parents did not have capacity to take me to college.
Purtroppo i miei genitori non avevano i mezzi finanziari per consentirmelo.
So I ended up going to work in a cafeteria.
Alla fine sono finita a lavorare in una caffetteria.
And as I was going on with my business of going to work,
Quindi lavoravo.
that is when I noticed the school had a
Poi a poco a
had a
poco
signboard that they were
mi resi
taking in
conto che
students.
quella scuola aveva un'insegna e diciamo
And I
si
casually
diceva
strolled in.
che appunto accettavano, valutavano diciamo nuove iscrizioni e allora entrai così spontaneamente.
They were doing interviews for the next year's intake.
Stavano facendo dei colloqui per gli studenti diciamo in tecnologie, in tecnica per l'anno successivo.
And I decided to sit for the interview.
Allora io decisi così spontaneamente di andare a fare uno di questi colloqui.
I did the interview and
Feci il colloquio
I was given the admission letter,
e sono stata ammessa,
but I had no school fees.
ma non avevo i mezzi per pagare la retta scolastica.
So I presented the admission letter to my dad,
E allora sottoposi il modulo di iscrizione a mio padre.
and he told me that's a boys' school and there is no way he was even going to bother.
Quella era una scuola maschile e che quindi assolutamente era fuori questione che io la frequentassi.
So I continued working at the cafeteria,
Allora ho continuato a lavorare
but
nella
now
caffetteria,
I would notice the school every time I pass.
però ogni volta che andavo a lavorare notavo la scuola.
And after about a year,
Dopo un anno circa
that's when I had enough money
avevo messo da parte abbastanza denaro
to actually go and start school.
per cominciare a studiare in quella scuola,
But it was enough for a term.
ma in realtà bastava per molto meno.
And so I joined the school,
Però intanto mi iscrissi,
but I did not know where to get the other school fees.
ma non sapevo comunque come pagare la retta.
After about, in between that first year,
Quindi dopo appunto quasi un anno,
it was a struggle of back and forth.
davvero è una lotta anche per potermi entrare nella scuola.
Because basically the amounts were very far and wide. Sometimes my dad would give me a few coins because
Perché davvero anche il trasporto per andare a scuola costava.
he saw I was hellbound on doing the course.
Avevo a malapena il denaro, ogni tanto mio padre mi allungava così
But
qualche moneta.
in between, he would think I'd come home pregnant because I was the only girl in the school.
Mio padre pensava che alla fine sarei finita incinta, anche perché quella era una scuola tutta di maschi.
But I intended to prove him
Ma
wrong.
io volevo dimostrargli che aveva torto.
So as I struggled with school fees,
Quindi da un lato avevo questi problemi con la retta scolastica,
there was a spiritual and mentor in the school.
ma poi c'era un mentore anche spirituale a scuola,
His name was Father Valerio.
Padre Valerio.
So he-
Allora, Su questo intanto volevo
I'd like to make a position, and she speaks about a school. Can you hear me, Terry? Can you hear me? And, well, this is a school that is like a college. So it was like she enrolled in engineering college, and his dad was very doubtful. He thought that it was a male school, but actually she was the only woman, and actually she became the best student in the school. Terry, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Terry? So let's go back to where I stopped you. When you sent me your speech, you talked about role played by Father Valerio. Father Valerio was in charge, of the school, and this meeting with him changed a lot. Can you hear the translation? Can you? Okay. So the encounter with Father. Tell us about Father Valerio, please.
So Father Valerio, once I met him, and he called me to his office. He asked me why I was missing school so much. And I explained my situation with my dad. And he told me to go back to class. After a few weeks, or it was 1 week thereabouts, he called me back to the office. And he told me that my school fees for the next year would be sorted. And that was my first encounter with AVSI. So they basically took care of my second year of school all the way until I finished. Father Valerio was very instrumental because as we were going on with our studies, coming from the ghettos, we had a lot of indiscipline issues here and there. But we would go to the chapel every other day. And basically, I also got to join the Christian movement. It was called CL. And a lot of my behavioral problems started getting aligned. So that encounter with the school just passing by was a very instrumental stage in my life. And as I continued with my studies, the challenges that were there slowly were eliminated courtesy of the financial help that I got from the foundation AVSI. And at some point I actually wanted to say thank you. But there was no face to those donors. We used to just write letters to unknown people. So this year, when I heard that there was this meeting in Rimini, and they invited me to give a testimony of my journey, I was overjoyed. Because for the first time, I actually could see the faces of the donors. The people who give towards that African child that they don't know. And I was happy to actually present a face to what they do. And that little amount that they give, thinking that it does not help, it goes a long, long way. I am who I am today.
Terry, I know that you get emotional. And first of all, the San Kzito School, over 30 years, has trained and educated more than 15,000 boys and girls, mostly boys, but also girls. And last year, our President Mattarella, the President of the Italian Republic, visited it, and it has a very high rate of employed people. Almost everybody finishing their studies there find a job. So more than 90%. And so, they can contribute to the prosperity and then also employ other people, creating businesses. And so this is the other question I want to ask you about your job, because your first job was working for a company, but after 5 years, and you had been promoted very quickly to a manager position, but then this company went bankrupt. And so what happened? What did you come up with? What you invented?
After I finished school, yes, I was employed for 5 years. I started as an intern. And at San Kzito, what normally happens is that they work very closely with very many companies. And they recommend the students to go and start working there. And the wholesomeness of an individual coming from the school automatically puts you at a very good position. So when I went to this organization, they were doing satellites and alarm systems, a lot of telecommunication work. But I had done electrical and electronics in St. Kzito. They integrated me to the system, but I caught up very fast. And after maybe an year, I was promoted to the position of I was the, what was it? I was the operations manager. Once I was promoted, I stayed in the position for about 3-4 years. And when the company went the other direction, I decided not to seek further employment. And I opened my own business, doing security works for homes, banks, institutions. I had it registered, and my entrepreneurial journey took off. I decided to take in some of the students from San Kzito as my technicians, and also from other institutions, just basically young people, giving them opportunity the same way I had been given. So for me, I call it paying it forward. The opportunities that were presented to me, I also extend them to others. I have 3 companies currently. The first one is the one I spoke about for the telecommunication works. The other one is for electrical works. And a third one happened by chance. I had an accident. And I decided to sell items while I was incapacitated for a moment. And currently it has 5 employees, the third company. The first 2 companies share 8 employees. Yes.
E quindi
Yes. Your companies are in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And we were trying to create a joint venture with São Paulo in Brazil, because the educational center needs some electrical installations to be redone. So maybe, Terry, you can help them out. So, Terry, I have another question. Your dad, so you said that it was a male environment, a job for boys. What does he say now?
Right now, he introduces me as the most proud father you've ever seen. You would assume he chose the course.
sì, esatto. La presenta come mia figlia ingegnere. Adesso ovviamente diciamo siamo.
So she introduces you as my daughter, engineer. So his esteem is limitless. A last question, and then we will conclude. So was it difficult to overcome, the stereotypes related to being a woman? And you told me that sometimes when you were a manager, you were asked to make coffee, but this happens still in Italy today.
Still happens to date, not even when I was employed. When I go for meetings, like site meetings with men, because mostly I'll be working in a construction site, I'll meet men who will ask me to make them tea because they think I'm a tea girl. Until the scope of work that I am doing is announced, and suddenly there's a new respect. So the stereotype of thinking that women are for the kitchen, it is very alive in Africa. In fact, one of my uncles had said he'd never give me work to install anything in his house because I'm a woman. When he needed a satellite dish installed, he did not know anybody else who does installations for satellites other than me. So he called me and I actually ensured I installed it myself, not even the technicians. I am also a mother to 3 beautiful children. So I engineer. I normally say I engineer in high heels. And they have to respect.
Brava.
Excellent. So your words, your sharing is great also for Italian girls. Many talented girls in Italy still have some problems here today in Italy and still have to struggle. So we are almost at the end of the meeting, but you still have to donate, you still have time, because you know that there are specific donating stations that have a red heart. You see, I put some heart print to be in line with this donate now sort of encouragement. And we're going through very uncertain times, and dialogue and peace seem to be in danger. That is why the words of Cardinal Pizzaballa touched us deeply during his opening speech at the opening of the meeting. That is why the meeting has decided to donate part of the collected money to the emergency in the Holy Land. Well, let's conclude now with the last question, the same question for everybody. So, do your, let's say, students or the people, you learn to teach to you? What do the people you teach to or you work with teach you every day? What do you learn from them?
As crianças que estão comigo me ensinam a perceber cada como único indivíduo.
So, my students make me feel good, and I see a lot of talent in all of them, and they are all incredible. Nelson, so beyond the subject you teach, what is it needed yet? Maybe there are more needs to be fulfilled in your educational centers. Well, promoting education is always important and necessary. Listen to them, trying to be authentic with them and true. Can I make an example? Yes, of course. I met a lady here in Italy. Her name is Mariella. Maybe some of you know her. And I met her in Prato, in a very ancient and beautiful school. And I saw an image, and she explained to me that that image depicted the angel of education destroying weapons. And so if Mariella didn't explain that to me, I would have not understood that that angel was the angel of education. But when I saw that image, I understood that that image by itself was a sort of prayer. And this is exactly what I see in my students. Every gaze, every smile of my students tell me that education is a form of praying, is like a prayer.
Então eu aprendo com meus meninos que a educação
I learn a lot with my students, and the thing I learn is that education is never enough, and that you cannot stop it, because education transforms lives. It's transformative. I used to live in a favela, in a slum, and now I'm here with you. I'm a living example of that, of the power of education. And what about you, Terry? What do you learn from the people that you employ?
I've learned the art of gratitude. In every walk of life, no matter the situation, there is something to be grateful about. We have a culture of complaining about things, but from the beginning, when somebody joins or starts working with us, I have a tendency to tell them that even if anything fails,
che se anche qualcosa andrà storto,
what you've learned from it is a lesson. There is nothing called failure per se.
imparare qualcosa e soprattutto che non c'è sempre il fallimento.
Because there would be no measure of success
Anche perché
if there was nothing that failed.
senza fallimenti non ci può essere successo.
So for me, every day,
Quindi per me, ogni
through
giorno,
everybody that I see,
attraverso ogni persona che vedo d'incontro,
gratitude, that is what I take from every single person that I meet.
è davvero proprio contraddistingue ogni momento.
As a matter of fact, even while I'm seated here today,
Anche qui, oggi,
and I see all these faces,
vedendo tutti voi,
and I believe
credo
there's someone probably in this congregation who gave
che sicuramente tra di voi c'è qualcuno che ha donato
towards the AVSI Foundation, towards San Kzito, towards a person they never met,
sono andate alla scuola di Kzito, persone che io non ho mai incontrato,
and that person is me.
ma quelle persone sono io stessa.
That hope that they gave one person
Sono io, perché quella speranza che avete dato anche a una singola persona
has probably created a whole ripple effect.
ha davvero creato un effetto moltiplicatore.
And I take it with me, like gratitude is everything, and that ray of hope, that's it.
Gratitudine è tutto, insieme alla speranza.
Yeah.
E la nostra gratitudine
And our gratitude, so this grateful approach that should always be with us in life, is addressed to those working for cooperation from Italy, so to all the people at AVSI and to the Italian International Cooperation. And also we really thank our guests, Nelson, Julivam, and Terry. We hope to see you again, maybe in the future in Rimini, or maybe we will invite you for events organized by the newspaper I work for. Thank you, and have a good continuation of the meeting. Thank you very much.